Hey, it's your girl LaJanae, and you are tuned into the Jacksonian media. I'm LaJanae, and I am from Moss Point, Mississippi, the Golden Gulf Coast. You better know it. I know you asked for that extra stuff. Growing up in Moss Point, Mississippi, first thing that come to mind is pride and also community. It's a small town, but definitely a heart of a tiger. I had fun. I was in band. I just remembered walking home from school with my best friends at the time. I just felt like I had a really good childhood. My mother is a nurse. But yeah, so I was the oldest of 3 kids. And so I felt like I had a lot of responsibility, but I never felt like my mama left me to raise my brothers how some people may feel. I had a good childhood. I think, obviously there are some things that I would probably change, but I was able to be in band, and I think that was one of the best things that happened to me. Just being taught, that's where I learned how to tip. Just being taught how to have couth, how to follow through things. Yeah, so I had a good childhood. I remember after the football games, everybody used to go to McDonald's. I also remember people going to Lucia Doe. There was like a local restaurant people went to get the chicken. They had the best fried chicken, and I never forget, you open up the plate, you got this bread with this fried chicken and a potato salad with the lettuce under the bottom. Oh my God. Ooh. So my childhood was lit. Like I'm so glad I grew up in Moss Point, even though it's small. I know a lot of people sometimes, you think you may not get exposed to a lot of things, and that's true. But I really love the sense of community and just the pride that we had at the time, and that we still do have. Like, nobody does it better than Moss Point. I mean, if you've never been to a Moss Point homecoming, you need to go. It's definitely a mini HBCU. Unfortunately, I had to move from Mississippi my year going into the 11th grade, which was so depressing for me. I didn't know I was moving until 2 days before I moved. And that school year before, I took all these pictures of me and my friends, and I wasn't even a girl that took a lot of pictures. That was back when they had the camera flash, and you had to wind it up and go get your pictures developed and everything. Such a long time ago. And I was devastated when I moved. I never forget, I was trying to put in the application at Chick-fil-A in this area called Gaucher, which is right down the street from Moss Point. Singing River Mall, and my mama looked at me and was like, "Ain't no need of you filling out the application, girl. We finna move." What? It was after my mama had gotten divorced, and so finding success in Mississippi, I moved. So I didn't come out of Mississippi per se doing what I do. I moved to Millington, which is a suburb of Memphis. And I hated it. And I was determined to get out of Tennessee and to find my happiness. I had such a terrible 2 years of life. And I just knew once I left Tennessee, I was not, that was just not a place for me. Because I just wasn't happy. So the way I found success after leaving Tennessee was attending the Jackson State University. They gave me the second wind that I needed. They gave me all the life that I needed. They gave me a sense of community. And I feel like I lost pride. And I feel like I lost a reason to just even live those last 2 years of high school. And I still struggle with that till this day. And going to college was the best thing that ever happened to me. So I found my success taking a path to college, to Jackson State. So, moving, when you move schools in the 11th grade, at that time, everybody, they have their bonds. They have their groups of people that they hang out with, people they've been going to school since 3rd grade. And so I felt like an outcast. All I did was go to church. Literally. That's it. And I gained so many pounds. Like, oh, when I was in band, baby, mom's point, oh, baby, let me tell you something. I was snatched, honey. I didn't even know it. And then I got to Millington, and I just was like, I gained a lot of weight because I was going to church and I was eating. And I just, it was a very dark time for me. And so I was able to find a job. My first job was Taco Bell. And that gave me a sense of pride. And so what I would do is I would go back and forth from Miles Point to Millington. I didn't do anything. I didn't go to a prom in Millington. The only thing that I did was a senior picnic. And I don't know why, but at the time I made such a big deal about the senior shirts that I spearheaded a campaign to get us some new senior shirts. So like half of the class had like these other shirts, and the part of the class that signed up to get shirts from me, they had yellow. They were yellow, and it was 05 on the back because I graduated high school in 05. Okay. And everybody signed their signature. I don't know why I needed that control. I think because my real life, I didn't have it. And so this t-shirt campaign became so personal for me. And I probably was so passionate about it for no reason other than I didn't have anything to do. Okay. So that was a very dark time for me. Very dark. So, but once I guess, I made a few friends. I was able to kind of acclimate myself, but I just was never really happy. And so how I ended up at Jackson State when I graduated, speaking of when I graduated, my grades were terrible. My grades were so bad because I was so depressed. But I did become a published author in 12th grade. Shout out to Miss Kincaid, my English teacher in 12th grade. And they read my poem at high school graduation called Time. And I don't remember it word for word, but it was just the gist of it was, at some point in time you will get what you want out of life. You just have to go through that period to where you don't have it. But soon come the time where you'll be happy and you'll be back to yourself. As far as me attending Jackson State upon graduation, my whole family went to Jackson State University except for a couple of them, child. They thought they wanted to go to Alcorn, FAMU, and Southern, okay? Anywho, yes, y'all heard me. I said Southern with 2 D's, okay? But my great-great-papa, God bless his soul, Papa O.D. Alford, was able to send my great-aunts to Jackson State. At the time it was Jackson College. And so that was just a tradition that was instilled in my family. My mama went to Jackson State. Like that's just like in my mind, I knew I was going to Jackson State. I remember filling out my ACT package, and at the time you had to write down the schools that you wanted to apply to so they can send your scores. The only school I was concerned about was Jackson State because that's the only school I wanted to go to. I didn't give a damn about nobody else's school. I had to get out of Tennessee. So even when I was in, before we moved to Millington, when I was in junior high and high school, we would always go to the Capital City Classic. No, not the Capital City Classic, the Southern Heritage Classic in Memphis. It was a tradition that we sat on the, in the middle of the field, like, well, the 50-yard line, like right below, like good seats. So going to Jackson State was something that I always wanted to do, but I just knew I had to make sure I did it once I moved to a different state that I just did not like. Jackson State for me was such a, I don't know, I felt like I was in a bubble. I felt like I was invincible. I felt like I was protected. I felt safe. I felt loved. I felt cared for. I had friends. I just had so much fun. It was a sweetness, a tenderness to be 17 and in college, to be doing your own thing and meeting people from different places and being introduced to different cultures, you know, different cities. And that was the first time I saw so many black people that were not alike. You know, you have, everybody knows Chicago gonna always be deep. Half of the people in Chicago from Mississippi, child, so they always gonna be deep. Then you have like people from New York, you got the people from Detroit. And it's just so beautiful to see so many different shades of blackness, and not just physically, but just mentally, and like what they're majoring in and how much you can learn, and the community. Like me and my friends, we were deep. You know, I had my crock pot at the time. I had a friend from New Orleans. She was always cooking. I had some other chicks from Mississippi. They would like cut up my jeans and cut up my shorts, because at that time, like, that was really big, that was in style. I remember one semester I cut up all my pants and had shorts. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, but like, I had such a good time. I just remember just being so carefree. And I didn't have a lot of money in college. I was the girl who, I didn't have a lot of money for books. As a matter of fact, I could probably count on one hand how many books I bought, because I had out-of-state fees. And so being the first child, even though my mom was a nurse paying for college, it was still a lot. You know, I still had my baby brothers at home, and obviously my mother still had a life, and you know, she made it work. I even sat out a semester because I just didn't have enough money to go to school. I was so depressed. I had to go back to Tennessee, and I got a job at Ryan's. Oh, Ryan's had some good roles, child. But you know, I got a job at Ryan's, and I was a hostess. And again, I was depressed again because I felt trapped. I felt restricted, and I felt like if I go to school and I make the dean's list every semester, why can't I go back? I didn't do anything wrong. So Jackson State was a lifeline for me. The difference between, like, I guess just living all over the country versus being from Moss Point is the exposure, the people that you get to meet, and unfortunately, it's just not a lot of opportunities in Mississippi. You have so many talented people that come out of Mississippi and may not be able to go back and at least live, because it's pretty dry down there, even politically. So that compared to living in Missouri, or living in Florida, or living in Atlanta, or living in LA, I just had so many more opportunities and just exposure to things. And not just, when I say opportunities, I'm not even talking about like career opportunities, while they did exist. I'm just talking about like opportunities just to learn more about life, just to learn more about people, learn more about like the way people live in LA is completely different from how they live down south. Completely different. I often describe LA as being freeing and very isolated at the same time, because even once you step off the plane, once you get land in LAX, the energy is so different. It's light. It's like it's really a whole vibe. But at the same time, it's so far away from your family. It's also very exclusive. When I first started freelancing and doing my own thing as a journalist and digital marketer, Atlanta was very open. Even if you were not owning a list, you could still go to a party if you had a camera around your neck, or if you just look like you belong there, they're gonna let you in. LA is so exclusive. If you are not on the list, they don't care what you have, you are not getting in. In Mississippi, it ain't nothing going on to even try to get in. Like it's dead, you know. So you go from not having any opportunities to having a lot of opportunities, and then being exclusive with opportunities. That's the difference for me. But I tell people all the time, if they want to get a start in this entertainment world that's so nuanced and that's ever changing, you should try Atlanta first, because LA is where you end up after you done gained your little grit and grind and gained your little stars, because, well, your stripes, Lord, not your stars. Because going to LA and not having any skin in the game, it's real hard to break through in the industry. So that would be the difference. The people, personally, like, I haven't lived in Atlanta in so many years now, but at the time, I think Atlanta was just right on the cusp of turning into another city, meaning so many people who live in Atlanta now are not even from Atlanta, and the real Atlanta is so hard to find. And going to LA, a lot of people are not authentic. It's just like carbon copy. Oh yeah, and it's kind of like you understand that it's not real, but every now and then you meet some genuine people, like I did, and you're like, damn, I appreciate you. And again, Mississippi is authentic, down to earth, hospitality, of course, but for me, it would be hard to build a life in Mississippi, because now when I visit Mississippi, I have no problem with going, but I eventually feel restricted. Like, my life just kind of slows down. It's crazy, but as soon as I leave, this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. So for me, Mississippi is like a rest stop now in my life. It's not anywhere where I can thrive. It's just where I just kind of relax and get my thoughts together. Yes. Well, first of all, let me say this. I always knew that I was going to do something that consisted of me running my mouth. At one point in time, it was being a lawyer, a defense attorney, and then it was being a journalist. And the funny thing is, when I got to Jackson State, I wanted to be on the newspaper staff. I turned in my first story about the freshmen, it was like incoming freshmen who were wanting to be, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Freshman, all the people who were running. And the woman at the time told me that my paper was terrible. It hurt my feelings so bad. Excuse me. It hurt my feelings so bad that I never went back and tried to be on the journalism staff, the editorial staff. She didn't offer me any direction. She didn't. One thing about HBCUs, honey, the people gonna tell you the truth, and she just, at the time, I was just so fragile. I just, you know, truth. I feel that truth without compassion is brutality. Truth without compassion is brutality, and baby, it was brutal. So I never went back. And at that point, I said, well, I was in colloquium, Dr. Dilworth class, and I said they had a guy to come in and talk to us about, you know, just public relations and stuff. Actually, I think at the time he was like the public relations officer for Jackson State. And I was like, maybe I should just do advertising. And so I did that. While I was, you know, obviously communications with an emphasis in advertising, I still took journalism classes. And so that's how I was still able to hone my skills as a writer. And yeah, so that's pretty much how I got started. I think for me, I'm never surprised at what I accomplish. I'm always surprised at how I accomplished it, because a lot of times for me in my life, I do so much with so little. And I'm like, wow, how did this happen to me? How did they find out about me? You know, like, what about me makes me so, like, I guess, marketable that people want to work with me. People reach out to me. So I knew I was going to have a life that consisted of talking. I was, even on my report card, it was always, I talk too damn much. I used to, can you come sit in the front of the class? Because I was talking too much. So yeah, I definitely knew that I was, I don't know if I knew I was going to be a journalist per se, for sure. Even though at times I did say I want to have my own magazine and stuff like that. And even now, there's still parts of me that want to go back to be, you know, want to go back to school to be an attorney. But I did know that I was going to use my voice to make a living. Girl, keep going. Healing is now in session. Which ended up being a Kindle Amazon bestseller, by the way, for like almost a month, I believe, maybe 3 weeks. So shout out to me, okay? Nah, but I'm laughing now, and I think I'm laughing because I don't know. It's just, this is like my first real time talking about this in this setting. But girl, keep going. Healing is now in session. is a book that I wrote when my relationship ended. I was in such a deep depression, and the book itself is just journals that I wrote to try to write myself back to life. That relationship was, for me, one that I had hoped for. Me and my ex moved to LA together. And I was hoping that we really would start a family, get married, and for me, like, that was it. Like, when I met him, I was like, okay, this is gonna be my husband. Like, I'm good. Like, you know, I'm good. And it didn't turn out like that. It ended up being a very abusive situation, physically, emotionally, and mentally. And so when the relationship ended, I was on meds because I was so stressed out. Oh, excuse me. I lost a lot of hair. And I think for the first time ever in my life, that was the first time, like, that I almost gave up on I just almost gave up on life. I was going to commit suicide. I already planned it out. Like, I had envisioned. So the night we got to, the morning we got to LA, the morning we got to California, we got to San Francisco, or is it San Diego? But it wasn't that far from LA. I can't remember at the moment. And so we slept on the beach because we were just we think we had like 2 hours left of driving, which is nothing when you've been driving like 20 some hours, right? We drove from Mississippi to LA, and at the time when we broke up, I was so broken. You know, when you deal with people who are just mean every single day, it takes a toll on you. And I was gonna die. I was gonna kill myself. I was gonna go back to the beach that we slept on. I was just gonna drive my car in the beach, and I was gonna die because I can't swim. Like, in my mind, that's what I was gonna do. And so I didn't do it, obviously. And what stopped me was I just felt like I still had a life to live. And I just had to make up my mind that whatever I thought was gonna happen between me and my ex wasn't gonna happen. And I had to adapt. I had to adjust. I had to realize that the woman that I was before and during him, I'm no longer that woman, because that's broken. So I had to, I don't want to say put myself back together again, but I had to find new pieces of myself in order to be the woman that I am now. So the book is just a self-healing book for other women who may find themselves in traumatic experiences, not necessarily based off of a relationship, but that experience was one of the three most traumatic things that has happened to me. That finding out who my real father was at 25, and moving the summer going into my 11th grade year at such a moment's notice. So that's where the book comes from. When I realized that my book was #1, I was so ecstatic. This is actually my 4th book. I'm self-published. And so I was so excited because I felt like, damn, so many people feeling it. Like, I'm helping so many women at that time. I had like a real rollout. My clarity coach, Jarese Edens, helped me a lot. The graphic designer, my spiritual coach, Ty. I was so intentional about telling my story. Like, it was my 4th book, but this was the first book that I was so intentional about, because it came from, not to say every other book didn't come from a real place, but it came from like one of the darkest moments in my life. All of my books are based on true stories. So while the other ones, I was kind of able to like pick myself up again after a few weeks or months, I wasn't able to do that in this lifetime. I just slept all day. I didn't even work. My mama had to pay my bills. Like I was so distraught. And so just to know that I was able to create something so beautiful in the midst of my pain, that people to this day, still right now, still DM me and tell me that it has helped them. People still talk about it. You know, I had 2 sayings when I was at the time when I was going through my healing, which was, well, I was going through my release, which was, girl, keep going, and eventually comes eventually. And so girl, keep going just literally means just girl, keep going. It's self-explanatory. Just keep going. I know you crying tonight. Keep going. I know you can't sleep tonight. Keep going. I know you calling his phone from that little text now app. Keep going. I know you keep looking him up. I know he's in your search options, but keep going. And eventually means eventually you will feel better. Eventually you will get the life that you want. Eventually you will stop crying. I don't know when it's gonna come, but eventually it will come. I had a Facebook group. We would discuss things. I had a trailer and everything. I had a website dedicated to it. And I was just so amazed and so blessed and overwhelmed with how many people supported me. I had a playlist too. Like, I just really wanted to make sure that it was intentional, because the heartache is real. Depression is real. Sometimes I don't even think you even get over everything. I just think you have other events in life that happens that kind of make the pain, I guess, smaller or less frequent. You know, to me, like sometimes certain trauma is like a chronic illness. You be completely fine. Well, grief is like a chronic illness. You be completely fine, and now you crying over somebody, and all you trying to do is eat fries. Like, so, like, so for me, I felt so good that I could just help people, and that I was able to tell my truth, tell my story. In addition to that, I used to write blogs on janetmichelle.com. Shout out to Janet for being able to just tell my story. It was just, I felt good. I felt like I helped people. I felt like I was useful. I felt like I was significant. So that's how I felt, going number 1. So the cover of the book, if you look closely, you will notice that half of it is 2 pictures in one. And one half of the picture is me when I was depressed. It was actually the picture of me like the first day after he left our apartment and we went separate ways. Was just me crying, just crying, and I took a picture of myself. And then the second photo is just me coming back to life. And on each side of the book you have like hurt, betrayed, lost, and then on the side where I look healthy and whole again, you have living life, happy, fulfilled, and stuff like that. So the details all the way down to the color scheme were very, very intentional, and I'm glad that I was able to follow through with something that even like that meticulous. It was really my baby. Okay, that's it. So I secured a job at the Shade Room via Facebook. I'm a firm believer in Facebook has a lot of golden gems, hidden gems rather, in their groups. So I'm in a group, and the recruiter at the time posted saying, hey, we are looking for XYZ, send your information. And it was so funny because at the time I had a corporate client. I was a freelancer, and I was handling $2 million accounts, just being a freelancer. And so I was like, I'm not finna apply, because my first thought was, ain't nobody paying no money. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody paying any money. So I emailed the recruiter. And for me, I basically just emailed my EPK, which is an electronic press kit, which looks like a resume with pictures, in short. I emailed that. I believe I had a website. Yeah, I emailed my website with all of my like my clippings, my bylines and whatnot. I didn't even know it was for the Shade Room until like my third interview, I believe. Yeah, like my second, maybe my second or third interview. That is when I realized I was interviewing for the Shade Room. It was very, very hush-hushy, low-key. And I think I started interviewing in November. I didn't get my official offer until January because it was the holiday season. And you know, like a few of the, you know, we had kind of go back and forth with the schedules. And yeah, that's pretty much how I secured my job at the Shade Room. Facebook. I just responded to an opportunity and had an interview. And it was so funny because when I went for my in-person interview, so at this point, I'm meeting with our CEO, Angie, HR rep, and the managers. And the interview was so easy for me because we were sitting down talking, and I'm such an informal person, but I do have enough awareness to know, like, if you are on an interview, it's certain etiquette, right? So I'm just sitting in the interview. I got my arm propped up on the chair, and we just mid-conversation, and I'm like, oh my God, my bad, y'all. I forgot we was in the interview because it was just so natural. Like, it didn't feel like an interview. It felt like just a conversation. You know how like you may meet people and you just kind of getting to know them? That's how my interview went. I had to take a test. Even before I got the interview, I had to take another test because most writing jobs do require tests. FYI for anybody who doesn't know. Yeah, so that was my process. It was very informal. I interviewed like at, I don't know, maybe 3 o'clock that afternoon. A few hours later, I'll never forget, I was in T-Mobile. I was on the phone with my mama and her friend at the time. I got the offer and I booed because this was just a few months this was like a few months after I was coming out of my depression with my ex, because I was depressed for like almost a year. And so to come from that and then to be depressed, get a corporate client, and then go to the Shade Room. Now, mind you, I moved to LA in 2018. My relationship ended in 2018. Let's say January 2019. From 2019 to almost 2020, I was depressed. And then at the end of 2020, it was like God said, okay, let me speed it up for you. And I got a job at the beginning of 2021 for the #1 black publication in the world. The #1 platform on Instagram. And so just to see the trajectory of my life, because at one point my mother asked me when I was depressed, my mama asked me if I wanted to move back home to Memphis. And I said, Ma, if I move, and she said, well, if you move, you can come back. I looked at her, I never forget, Ma, if I move, I'm not coming back. People don't just leave places like LA and New York and come back. You don't come back most times. And so I was serious. I wasn't coming back. When we moved to LA, I moved to LA to get my #1 goal, and I said this, I put it on my Facebook. My #1 goal was to get a job with a major publication. That was it. I didn't have anywhere to stay. We did Airbnbs. We did these, oh Lord, we did these raggedy ass hotels. Yeah, so like I was determined. Every few days we were going from Airbnb to Airbnb. But I not one time ever went hungry, ever went broke. And what's crazy is when I got to LA, 1 month I made $10,000 as a freelancer. $10,000 from people who gave me jobs and people who just sending me money to support me. Well, us, basically. So for me, I am so absolutely insane about my career. Like, there's nothing, you're not gonna tell me no. And that's because my mama never told me no growing up as a child. So when an adult tells me I can't do something, or when life turns around and be like, well, no, I always be like, I get frustrated, but I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe no, but not, it's not a hard no, but it's just a not right now. Like, I went from being evicted in Atlanta, sleeping on my friend's couch, needing my friend's support, to the shade room. That's just a blessing in all in itself. Our company is growing. The shade room is it's essentially small. It's a small team. It's a handful of us. And it's so funny because I've had people to ask me, is that a real job? Well, I'm here to tell y'all, yes, it's a real job with paid benefits, boo. Okay. Listen, I like to have fun at work. We definitely believe in having fun. We have to be like double-minded almost. And I say that because we have to view the content as a regular social media user. You laugh. You know what you do when you normally scrolling. You laugh and you're like, what? Oh, no, they didn't. Did y'all see this meme? Did you see that? You know what I'm saying? Natural reactions. We have to be authentic in how we navigate social media. But also, we have rules and regulations that we must follow as representatives of the Shade Room, journalists, social media content producers. So the day-to-day is fun. It can be hectic, especially when you have 5 breaking stories. That could mean multiple people tweeting at one time about a hot topic. That could mean somebody was just sentenced and found guilty. That could mean somebody trying to overthrow the government. Like, what's breaking news? Like, celebrity news is still news. And within that, if a main or A-lister is making some tweets, or either someone is just tweeting about a hot topic, we gonna grab it. We got it. You know, we move so fast. And one of the favorite things I like to see in the comments is, dang, y'all fast, Shade Room. They just posted this, Shade Room. The roommates are so funny. They tell us when we get it right. They tell us when we get it wrong. They tell us what they want more of. But you gotta love them. But yeah, so the day-to-day, it can range. It's different. Sometimes I deal with a lot of, I've gravitated towards a lot of crime, and where crime and celebrity news intersects. And so sometimes I may be looking at documents to see who got arrested and why. And just like I broke the Yaya Mayweather exclusive on when she pled guilty and pled not and changed her plea, and what the prosecutors were recommending. Things like that. Sometimes I'm trying to get an exclusive on what the people talking about in the Twitter streets. Like, at one point, everybody was saying that Megan Thee Stallion was dropped from Fenty, and the whole time the girl's contract was expired, so she couldn't be dropped from something that had expired. And I was able to clear that up. So for me, my day-to-day is getting in, see what's going on. Some days it's slower than others. Being creative. I think the number one thing that I have appreciated so much being at the Shade Room is taking my creativity and what I consider to be creative and amplify it. A lot of times, you know, some people think that creativity can't be taught, and it can. I've worked with my managers relentlessly on being better creatively. So just being able to package things. I mean, the Shade Room has changed my life in the sense of I can look at something and tell you why it didn't do good, or tell you how you can get more traction on your own page. You know, it's just like the girls that get it, the girls who get it, and the ones who don't. Like, it's a formula that I'm not even sure if it can technically be taught. It either got to be in you, because it can't, you know, it got to be in you, not on you. So, you know, a day-to-day thing, it's fun. Sometimes it's slow. One thing that the Shade Room has taught me: if you mess up, you must keep going. If you post a headline or anything with a typo, archive it and keep going. If you make a mistake and you report, I don't know, maybe you didn't use the correct wording. Maybe what you said was true, but you could have worded it differently so it could be more palatable for the audience. Learn from that and keep going. One thing about the show, you just have to keep going. You cannot, like, you have to keep going. A lot of times we are criticized about certain things, and a lot of times people love us about those same things. One thing that I can say is that, you know, we pride ourselves in making sure that we have a balance, making sure that we use discretion in every single thing that we post. And I'm just grateful to work for a company that people love and respect. And also, just outside of the celebrity news, being able to change people's lives, like everyday people. You know, a lot of people that I've posted on the Shade Room have went on to be on Ellen. You know what I'm saying? So being able to, like, I got a message today from somebody. Oh, you changed my family's life. I thank you so much when you posted us. This young man, I posted one of his videos. What a celebrity was in one of his videos. I think they stopped at the gas station while they were filming, and voila, there goes a celebrity. He joins them, and the guy was like, "Thank you so much. You have no idea how much they helped me and my music." And so, just being able to just capture those moments for people, change, to be able to disseminate information and change people's lives, and to be able, to some degree, be a gatekeeper of the culture. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a responsibility that comes with that. So I'm very, very thankful, and I definitely appreciate it. I'm working on starting my own YouTube channel. Well, I had a YouTube channel back in the gap before people really started reviewing shows. I used to review shows. I think the first show I reviewed was it Starter Wives? It had like DMX's wife on, ex-wife, Floyd Mayweather's, the mother of his child at the time, God rest her soul, I can't remember her name. I want to say it was 50 Cent's baby mama was on there, I do believe. And they had like only a few episodes, and then like the people shut them down. Like, you know, the baby daddies were not for it. But yeah, so I'm gonna start doing my own YouTube channel. Again, I'm gonna relaunch my YouTube channel. I'm also working on another book. This one is basically well, do I want to tell the title? I don't want to tell the title because I may change it. But, well, okay, the working title for right now is So You Want to Gossip. I think people have this misconception that just because you have a platform, you can say whatever you want to say about any celebrity and they will still show you love, and that's just not how it works. So, obviously you have to report the news, you have to be balanced. But you never want to go in so hard on a person, because these celebs are still humans. You never want to go in so hard on a person to where no one would ever want to sit down and talk to you. Because if no one ever wants to sit down and talk to you, how are you going to break exclusives? You're just going to be forever regurgitating news that somebody else told you that may or may not be true. So for me, I want to put that out because, again, gossip news is still news. And one thing that I don't like about social media is that it has watered down a lot of things. Like there's not many ethical things. Like people just hear stuff and just run with it, and that's just not right. So yeah, so that's what I'm working on. I also have a few other projects that I'm working on, but I cannot discuss them right now. But I would love to host more in the future, so I'm hoping to do that. I love being on camera, I love being in the front, so I'm doing things that lead me in that direction. I would like, in the next 5 years, I would like to have my own show. I would like to just be the who's who of the industry, to be honest. Oh Lord, I can't talk. I would like to be the who's who of the industry, to be honest. I think I'm in a point of my career, I've been doing this for 12 years. From, again, sleeping on my friend's couch to paying my rent late oh God, I used to pay my rent late every month. It was so late that I knew what day they was gonna put the notice to vacate on my door, right? So now I'm paying my rent up for months, you know. just people recognizing me, you know, and wanting to work with me for my talents. I get so much love from other people in the industry that may have known me before the shade room, or may have met me through the shade room, and they just appreciate me and who I am. So I would love to have my own show. I would love to do more speaking engagements. I want to land on the cover of Essence. I'm on the Essence cover. I also would love to speak on the main stage at an Essence fest. So those are just a few things of personal career goals. Hey y'all, I'm LaJanae. Thank you for tuning in.